March 14th, 2026. Hey future me. I'm frightened by the future. Frightened by the thought of stepping outside my comfort zone. Of finding myself alone. Having to face my own demons. Having to struggle by myself. Frightened by the thought of not finding. Of not succeeding. Of having to come back empty-handed. Or of never being able to come back. I'm so scared of having nothing and no one to fall back on. Afraid of what I might fall forward into. I am frightened because I feel like I have no one to turn to. No one who can tell me what to do now. So I get on my knees, begging and crying, palms upward, turning to the one who will guide me through it all. Please Allah, help me. I wrote this one day after a full day spent surrounded by the people I love the most. After going to the gym, where I found myself laughing, truly laughing with two people who over time have become much more than just gym members. They've become dear friends. I jumped on the treadmill and for an hour I walked side by side with my gym buddy, the same one I've walked with throughout this entire holy month of Ramadan. Supporting each other, pushing each other, refusing to let one another stop at 30 minutes when we knew we could go for 45 or even 60. I wrote this after a family dinner, after one of the most beautiful iftars I've ever experienced. And in that moment, something inside me whispered, but I want this. I really do want this. I could see it so clearly. A life just like this, surrounded by the most wonderful souls. And suddenly I couldn't hold it anymore. I cried. I cried out of gratitude for everything I have. I cried out of fear of what I might lose, of what might come. I cried because I didn't know what to choose. I didn't know where to go, and I didn't know who to turn to. And in the end I cried as I turned to the only one who I knew could truly guide me in making the right choice and in carrying me throughout whatever choice I make and I would make. Just before that moment though, I had felt the exact same thing. I had written about it, almost the same words, almost the same feelings, as if nothing had changed. As if those emotions lived in me constant, and they did live in me constantly, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Because it feels like every time I'm working, every time I'm alone with my thoughts, my ambition, something awakens in me. A desire to become more, to do more, to explore, to go out into the world and be, and create, and do something that the little version of me would be so inspired by, so proud of. And yet, the moment I find myself surrounded by my people, surrounded by my family, by warmth, by laughter, by familiarity, that same idea of leaving for something better suddenly feels almost absurd, almost unthinkable, like something that doesn't belong to the life I already have, to the life I already love. Here's what I've written. January 13th, 2026. Hey future me. I don't want to go, if that means losing these people. I don't want to never laugh again over broken machines and weird exercises at the gym. I don't want to miss the birthdays of the people I love because I'm too far away. To miss the everyday news of the people I love. To lose the familiarity, the complicity, the everyday hellos. I don't want to go if that means being forgotten forever. If it means living all alone and coming back to a whole new world, whole new people, whole new feelings, in the same old place where I lived all of this. And yet, is there any other alternative? As if today I am an intern in medicine, a 7th year medical student. And in a few months, inshallah, I will be done. I will finally earn the title doctor in front of my name. I will reach what seems like the end of a path built on 19 years of studying, of hard work, of dedication. And yet, even though it feels like an ending, to me, it feels more like the beginning of something else. Something I don't yet know how to name. Is this the beginning of my life? The beginning of a change? A new cycle? Like with every beginning in life, a choice seemed to naturally appear. A choice between two paths. One is the path of what is common, of comfort, of ease, of what is expected, of what is known. And the other is a path of uncertainty, of novelty, of experience, of fear. Here is one of the many letters I've written about this. February 28th, 2026. Hey future me. I'm afraid of a tomorrow that I know nothing about. Afraid of what I won't know how to handle. Afraid of what I don't yet know how to do. Afraid I won't be able to make time for the whats and the whos that matter. Afraid I won't keep the promises. Afraid that I'll forget. I'm afraid to lose a world I already have. A world I already love for a utopia that might not even exist. And yet, is there any other way to live than to abandon the comfort of your own bed and go battle the pain of the day for the chance of a better sleep and a better bed with bigger dreams? So as I'm reaching the end of my medical journey here in Algeria, it feels like I'm standing at a crossroads, a point of intersection, a moment where I have to decide, do I continue on the path I already know? Do I stay here in my comfort zone, surrounded by familiar faces, familiar places, a familiar life? A life where not much changes, where I choose stability, the beauty of a small, meaningful job and a specialty I love, a husband I would cherish and support for the rest of my life, children I would raise with the same principles, values, and education I was raised with, a life surrounded by family, by people who embody a culture I deeply respect, a religion that feels like home. Maybe I wouldn't have the salary, or the working conditions, or even the research opportunities I can find elsewhere. Maybe I wouldn't discover something new about myself. Maybe I wouldn't learn how I truly face life when it challenges me. But I would know. I would know where I'm going. I would know where I'll land. I would have a sense, almost a certainty, of who I'll meet and of who I'll grow old with. Here's a letter that expresses a feeling I had at a time where I realized how much I would be missing if I went far away. May 23rd, 2025. Hey future me. Yesterday I was watching a movie with my family, and at one point I stepped back a little and just watched them. They were all sitting there, fully present, eyes on the screen, laughing, whispering. And for a second time slowed down. It looked like a picture, but from where I was standing, I wasn't in it. And that thought hit hard. It made me feel like an outsider in a moment I didn't want to lose. Maybe I've been running so hard after my dreams that I forgot what I'd be leaving behind if I caught them. It made me ask questions I wasn't ready for. Are the decisions I want to make really worth it? Am I risking something far more important in the process? And suddenly I also realized something. Maybe I haven't been taking care of myself the way I should have. Pushing in sports, working non-stop, skipping rest, as if I had nothing to lose. But I do. I have people to lose, and they have me to lose. It felt selfish to think I could burn out or break down without considering what it would do to them. But if I start holding back too much, I might never live the life I dream of. So what's the balance? Where's the line between chasing your future and treasuring your present? I could stay here in Algeria for the rest of my life, or I could leave, go somewhere new, a new country, a new environment, new people, a place where discomfort becomes the norm, where I become once again like a child, learning how to live, how to speak, how to think, and how to grow. A place where I would have no choice but to fall forward, because there would be nothing and no one to fall back on. Everything would be different, scary and exciting. Every step would feel heavier, uncertain. I wouldn't know who I'll meet, or what I'll do, or who I might become. Nothing would be guaranteed. I might discover loneliness. I might have to learn how to live with myself, to take care of myself. I might have to face sadness, fear, maybe even rejection or racism, the weight of missing the people I love. But at the same time, I would get to chase something new, a different version of myself. I might grow in ways I cannot even begin to imagine right now. I would learn. I would see the world. I would live differently. And maybe, just maybe, I would gather enough knowledge, enough experience to one day bring something back to my country. And that is a good segue, I believe, to the answer my future self gave me. May 24th, 2025. Hey you, I'm happy to see you noticing the important things around you. Happy to see you becoming aware of something most people miss. That you're not permanent. That life isn't. And neither are the people and moments you hold close. I know it's confusing. It shakes things up. It makes you question every decision you've made and every one you still want to make. But I'm not here to hand you all the answers, Dunya. That was never the point. I'm here to guide you, to give you what you need to think for yourself. And if there's one truth I've learned so far, it's this. Relationships are the most important thing you'll ever have. They are what give your life meaning. They are the reason you'll want to keep going. But that doesn't mean you should stop dreaming. It doesn't mean giving up on your goals just to hold on to people. The real balance is in giving your all to what you do, while also making space for the people who matter. It's in knowing when to grind and when to pause and be present. To work hard, but also to look up and smile at the people sitting next to you. Go out with them when you can. Laugh with them while you still have time. Be there when they need you. Live this moment, not the one in your head. You'll never regret chasing your dreams, but you might regret missing the moments that gave those dreams their meaning. So dream, but also live, right here, right now. Love you, always, forever proud of you. Your hero, me. And in trying to understand these two paths, in trying to study them, to feel them, to almost live them before choosing, I found myself drawn to stories. Stories of people who had already made that choice. I started listening to podcast episodes of Algerians who chose to leave, who chose to go abroad and build a life different from the one that was expected of them. People who succeeded, people who struggled, people who learned and grew and expanded beyond what they once thought possible. People who, in their own way, became true ambassadors of our religion, of our values, of our country. And people who didn't just take from that experience, but who carried something back. Today, I want to share with you the lessons I learned from 3 people, 3 journeys, 3 completely different lives that somehow meet at the same destination. Today, I want to share with you what feels like a distillation of what it really means to survive and succeed abroad. But before that, let me introduce you to them. The first is Tony Kitous, an Algerian chef and entrepreneur who founded what is now a global restaurant chain called Comptoir Libanais. Many people first discovered him through a viral video with I Show Speed, where he appeared as this incredible, almost larger-than-life chef, making him fall in love with Algerian food. To many, he looked like an overnight success, but I knew Tony long before that. I knew him from a gym I go to. I knew him from the discipline he showed every single day, through his quiet consistency, through his kindness and his humility, his simple, respectful hellos and goodbyes. I knew he had a restaurant in London, and I imagined something small, something cozy, hidden in a quiet street. Until one day I went there in London, and I saw with my own eyes the scale of what he had built, and I experienced it. Alhamdulillah. And as I listened to his story, as I looked deeper, I realized that what people often saw as sudden success was in reality years of struggle, of hunger, of sacrifice, hidden beneath the surface. The second person I want to talk about is Shamsuddin Sahlawi. I discovered Shamsu through a friend, someone who knew how much I value discipline, and she told me, "You're gonna love the discipline of this guy." And she was absolutely right. So Shamsu is a dentist who had to retake the baccalaureate exam 3 times. So the baccalaureate exam is an exam we have to pass in Algeria in order to go from high school to university. And so he had to retake that exam 3 times before finally reaching the path he wanted. He studied dentistry in Algeria, while at the same time studying computer science in France, working part-time and navigating both worlds at once. I mean, isn't that already crazy? Later, he made another decision and he decided to take control of his life completely. He started working out 5 days a week in order to get a great shape. He worked and he studied German with the goal of continuing his journey in Germany as a dentist. And during that same period, he began building his presence on social media. And now he's like at 600,000 followers on Instagram alone. So discipline wasn't just something he talked about. It was something he actually lived. And the third person is Mehdi Boubatra, someone I discovered almost by accident on my Instagram For You page. And I'm genuinely grateful I did. Because the more I listened to him, the more I felt like I was listening to someone far older than his age. Like, he really has a wise soul living inside a young man's life. His journey is one of constant movement, constant reinvention, constant courage. And we'll talk about that in the following lessons. So now, let's begin. Let's talk about the lessons I learned from these 3 Algerians who chose to step into the unknown and managed to build something meaningful there. A quick note before we start. These are lessons I learned from studying men. And I know that as women, our realities can be different and are certainly different. But I truly believe that within these stories, there is something valuable for all of us, something worth reflecting on. Lesson 1 is about faith, values, and how parents come first. The one thing that struck me the most in all their stories was how deeply their values shaped their journey. Success didn't come first. Faith did. Family did. January 17th, 2026. Hey, future me. I wish I could wake up one day and all the doubts would be gone. That I would have forgotten everything that ever hurt me. That the fears would have disappeared. I wish I could open my eyes and realize I don't have to choose between ambition and the people I love, between being surrounded and being lonely. I wish I could hold my head up and see the smiling eyes of a beautiful child who is better than me in every possible way, better than me and the men I promised to love, for better or for worse combined, the men whose life I promised to witness, the man who opened his arms to protect, his heart to love, to be affectionate, to have mercy. I just wish I could wake up one day and have faith and know that it's all going to be all right, finally. And that's exactly what I found in their stories. Certainty didn't come from knowing the path. It came from knowing who they were walking with, who being the faith, who being the family supporting them from behind. Tony Kitus often talks about the influence of his mother. For him, she was his accomplice from a very young age. She would prepare sandwiches for him to sell at a nearby football stadium, so he could earn a little bit of pocket money. And he actually earned more in one day what his father made in 1 month. His father actually knew nothing about what he was doing. And in many ways, that was the beginning. The beginning of his relationship with food, the beginning of his connection to the culinary world. For Mehdi Boubatra, the idea goes even deeper. He says that if you love Allah, if you honor your parents, if Allah and your parents are pleased with you, then you have absolutely nothing to fear. Then you can move forward fearlessly, unapologetically, because whatever happens next will in one way or another be good for you. And when I heard that, I couldn't help but think of something Denzel Washington once said in a commencement speech. Something he said as if given a blueprint for life. And this is actually one of the speeches that I learned by heart when I was in high school. And right now, I could actually say it without reading any of it. But being a perfectionist, I will actually try to read a bit just to be sure that I won't make any mistake. Anyways, so in this commencement speech, there were about 5 or 6 lessons. And the first one was number 1, put God first. Put God first in everything you do. Everything that you think you see in me, everything that I've accomplished, everything that you think I have, and I have a few things. Everything that I have is by the grace of God. Understand that. It's a gift. 40 years ago, March 27, 1975. It was 40 years ago just this past March. I was flunking out of college. I had a 1.7 grade point average. I hope none of you can relate. I had a 1.7 grade point average. I was sitting in my mother's beauty shop. They still call it beauty shop now? What they call it? Yeah, and I was sitting in a beauty parlor. So I was sitting in my mom's beauty parlor, and I'm actually trying to imitate Denzel Washington, although I can imitate him way better than this. But I will keep my version of it. Anyways, and he says, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I see behind me this woman under the dryer. And every time I looked up, she was looking at me. She was looking at me in the eye. I don't know who she was. And I said, she said, somebody give me a pen, give me a pencil. I have a prophecy. March 27, 1975. She said, boy, you are going to travel the world and speak to millions of people. Now, mind you, I flunked out of college. I'm thinking about joining the army. I didn't know what I was going to do, and she's telling me I'm going to travel the world and speak to millions of people. Well, I have traveled the world, and I have spoken to millions of people, but that's not the most important thing in the success that I had. The most important thing is that what she taught me and what she told me that day had stayed with me since. I've been protected, I've been directed, I've been corrected. I've kept God in my life and it's kept me humble. I didn't always stick with him, but he always stuck with me. So stick with him in everything you do. If you think you want to do what you think I've done, then do what I've done and stick with God. I absolutely love this lesson. I absolutely love this phrasing of stick with God and put God first. And I actually use it a lot in my life. If I could have a life motto, I would love this to be it. Put God first. I mean, it's a simple idea, but a powerful one. Mehdi Boubaddara also said something that stayed with me. When you love your parents, and when they love you, when they pray for you, it feels like wearing a bulletproof vest. And before he left abroad, his mother told him something that feels like a prayer, a promise, and a surrender all at once. She said, "Li fiha khair, Rabbi yijibha lak." Something in the sense that, and it is not translated in the best way, but what is meant for you will find its way to you. So you don't have to fear anything. Here's one letter I wrote that goes a bit in that direction. June 1st, 2025. Hey babe, I get it. I really do. You're afraid of a million different things, and that's okay. And to those million different fears, I have only one answer. Get on your knees, Junior. Raise your hands high. Don't pretend to be good. Don't pretend to know. Be you, the raw, vulnerable, afraid, clueless, imperfect version of you. Admit the things you know you shouldn't want, but do. The things you're told not to hope for, but still long for. Admit that sometimes you're ego-driven, obsessed, lonely, scared. Admit it all. Be honest. Be real. And ask Allah, the most merciful, to help you. Ask him to be there with you, to guide you, gently but surely. Because the truth is, baby Dune, there's only one thing you truly need. To put God first, always. To stick close to him in everything you do. If you do that, I promise you will never be lost. Love you, always. Forever proud of you. Your hero, me. And that's what they all seem to understand. They all seem to understand what, in a way, I was still learning. Because the same pattern appears again with Shamsu Sahrawi. Different story, different path, but the same foundation, which is faith, parents, values. All of them emphasize ar-rida, the idea that Allah being pleased with you and your parents being pleased with you is the foundation of everything else. And alongside faith and family, there's another value that quietly appears in all of their stories. Humility. I saw it personally. As I mentioned before, I used to see Tony at the gym. And despite everything he had built, he never acted like someone above others. He was never too successful, too important, too big to say simple hello. And this brings us to something deeply connected to all of this. When you go abroad, you don't just go as yourself. You go as a representation, a reflection, an ambassador. Mehdi spoke about this beautifully. He said that when you live abroad, you carry a responsibility to represent your country, your values, your religion. Because whether we like it or not, people will form opinions about where you came from through you. He talked about how many people have misconceptions about Islam, about Algeria, and how through his behavior, his words, his way of being, he tries to correct those ideas. Not through arguments, but through example. And interestingly, he also believed that going abroad doesn't weaken your faith. It reveals it. It tests it. It deepens it. Because when everything familiar disappears, what remains is what was truly anchored within you. And if your faith was strong before, it only becomes stronger. And finally, there is one more layer to all of this, something that ties everything together. And that is the idea of bringing back knowledge, bringing back experience, perspective, giving back to the place that raised you. Because in the end, success is not just about what you build for yourself, it's also about what you bring back to others. And in their own ways. Tani, Mehdi, and Shamsu have all done that through their work, through their content, through their stories. They actually brought back more than success. They brought back perspective. And maybe that's what this first lesson is really about. No matter how far you go, no matter how much you achieve, never lose your foundation. Because it's not just what keeps you grounded, it's what allows you to rise in the first place. And that is definitely a goal of mine too. May 29th, 2025. Hey future me. Today I just want to be grateful. To thank Allah not only for everything He's given me, but for everything He's taken away. For the things I once begged for that never came, because He knew better. I want to thank Him for the clarity, for bringing closer the people I needed most, for making me remember when I had to, and for allowing me to forget when remembering hurt too much. I want to thank Allah for every opportunity He gently placed in my path, for every ounce of strength He poured into me, when I truly believed I was about to break. And today, more than anything, I want to thank Him for the souls who take time out of their day to read my words, to check in on me, to see me, really see me. Ya Allah, I pray for them. Keep them close to you. Bring them peace in their hearts, answers to their prayers, joys that fuels their days, health that holds them steady, and love that surrounds them always. Make their path gentle and their dreams come true, inshallah. Lesson 2 is about having a vision and believing in it. When Tony Kitus arrived in London, he had 70 pounds in his pocket. That was it. At one point, he slept in the metro. He worked washing dishes, cleaning kitchens, doing anything he could just to survive. But even then, he had a voice in his head telling him something very specific. Within 4 or 5 years, I will have my own business. For him, it wasn't optional. It wasn't a dream. It was a decision, a matter of life and death. And the same thing happened with Shamsu Sahrawi. His path wasn't easy. He retook the baccalaureate multiple times. But what's fascinating is that both of them behaved as if there was no other alternative, no plan B, no exit, just forward. And this reminds me of something Arnold Schwarzenegger, the actor Arnold Schwarzenegger, actually the actor, the ex-senator, the ex-bodybuilding champion, once said. He talked about how everything he achieved started with a vision he had as a teenager after watching a documentary about the United States. He didn't know how, he didn't know when, but he knew. And he said, I hate Plan B, and I'll tell you why. We have so many doubters. We have so many of those people who say, no, you can't do it. It's impossible. And if you start doubting yourself, it's dangerous because you're basically saying that if my plan doesn't work, I need to have a plan B. And now every thought and energy that you put into plan B, you're taking away from plan A. I'm telling you, I never ever had a plan B. I made a full commitment that I'm going to be a bodybuilding champion. I made a full commitment that I'm going to be in America. I made a full commitment that I'm going to get into show business. No matter what happens, I'm going to do the work. He says, it is very important to know that we function better if we don't have a safety net. And I think that's the dangerous part. When you have a plan B, the moment you allow yourself a way out, you start slowly walking toward it. And this idea connects so deeply with something else that Denzel Washington says. He says, I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, there is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living. Now, I'm sure in your experiences in school and applying to college and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with life, I'm sure people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Make sure you got something to fall back on, honey. But I never understood that concept, having something to fall back on. If I'm gonna fall, I don't want to fall back on anything except my faith. I want to fall forward. I figure at least this way, I'll see what I'm going to hit. Fall forward. This is what I mean. Reggie Jackson struck out 2,600 times in his career, the most in the history of baseball. But you don't hear about the strikeouts. People remember the home runs. Fall forward. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiment. Did you know that? I didn't know that, because the 1,001st was the light bulb. Fall forward. Every failed experiment is one step closer to success. You've got to take risks. End of the quote. And I think before even talking about action, before talking about discipline or strategy, there's something deeper. There's that moment where you decide to believe, even when nothing around you proves that you should. And I remember writing this in February 8th, 2026. Hey, future me. Yesterday I saw hope again, as if I were 16 again, innocent, not yet knowing some of the truths of life. Yesterday I saw ambition. I saw the tomorrow I could reach, the things I could achieve. Yesterday everything I had been overthinking about seemed futile, insignificant. Yesterday felt incredible, as if everything had changed. So why am I back to square one? Back to the same thoughts about the mundane? Why can I stay among the stars on my way to the moon? Because the truth is, having a vision is not just about seeing something beautiful ahead. It's about believing while you're still standing in uncertainty. And once you believe, you have to act. Even when it doesn't make sense, even when it feels small, even when it feels useless. Mehdi Boubaddra talks about this in such a powerful way. He says that when you have an idea, you almost have a moral obligation to act on it. Because some people never even get that spark. And when it comes to you, you only have two choices. Either kill it or try. And the moment you try, you become someone else. Because if you succeed, you win. And if you fail, you enter a whole new world. A world where trying becomes part of who you are. So whenever you have an idea, let it live. Don't shut it down before it even has a chance to breathe. Because if you try and you fail, the worst case scenario is simple. You fail, and then you try again. You actually have nothing to lose. He says that it's almost like a law. If you do nothing, you have 0% chance of succeeding. But if you try, even a little, your chances start to exist. And not everyone even gets that spark. Not everyone feels that fire. So when you feel it, as I said, you have two choices. You either doubt yourself and kill it, or you try. And the moment you try, you change. You become someone else. And from that moment on, standing still becomes harder than moving forward. He also says, whatever you choose to do in life, you will never have all the answers. There will always be doubts, uncertainty, things that don't make sense. There will always be obstacles, things trying to slow you down. But you have to hold your ground, no matter where the arrows are coming from, and keep moving forward. Because in the end, there are only two outcomes. Either you get there, or you don't. But at least you would have tried. And I think this is something I had to learn the hard way too, in January 8th, 2026. Hey bae, at some point you'll have to stop looking for signs. You'll have to stop hoping things will magically turn out the way you want them to, while knowing deep down that your actions aren't leading you there. You'll have to stop dreaming of a future you're not actively walking toward. Stop regretting, day after day, the actions of a week yesterday. Stop seeking forgiveness when you already know you'll repeat the same patterns again. At some point, you'll have to look in the mirror and truly face you. You'll have to take responsibility. Hold accountable the only person who needs to be held accountable. Lead yourself back to the right path and finally start acting the way you already know you should. Love you, always, forever proud of you. Your hero, me. Because belief without action is just comfort, and action without direction is chaos. You need both. And then comes something that most people underestimate, which is deadline. Shamsu Sahrawi is a perfect example of this. At one point, he was studying dentistry in Algeria and computer science in France, while working part-time. And when you hear that, you think, how is that even possible? And his answer was simple. He had deadlines, exams in a few weeks, clear priorities, clear focus, nothing magical, just commitment to time. And it reminds me of something often mentioned in the Founders podcast, that deadlines are not the enemy of creativity. They are what force decisions. They remove the unnecessary. They stop you from chasing perfection. And they push you to produce. Here's what David Senra says about this in episode 411, I think. He says, what is also fascinating is what Christopher Nolan said about this. A deadline is often a creative accelerator, not a creative killer, because it forces decisions. Christopher Nolan says his creative process ramps up exponentially when he knows the deadline is real, and that this pressure helps you make decisions. Always demand a deadline because it weeds out the extraneous and the ordinary. A deadline prevents you from trying to make it perfect, so you have to make it different. Different is better. That is so important. It's actually one of the main points in Ed Catmull, who's the co-founder of Pixar. He wrote this great autobiography called Creativity Inc. and what he knows, and he says, without a deadline, people can always justify more time and more money in the name of making it better. There must be a cut by date. But here's where it gets interesting. Because everything we just said sounds like have a vision, ignore everything else, no plan B. And yet, Mehdi Boubatra's stories introduces something that seems contradictory. He says, be open. Because when he wanted to leave, he didn't know where to go. Canada, maybe. Europe, maybe. He just knew one thing. He wanted change. And when everything came, Czech Republic, then Malta, he said yes. Even with doubt, even with fear, even with uncertainty. And what's crazy is that the rejection he got from Prague became the reason he ended up in Malta, which he later called the best refusal of my life. And I remember writing something about that too, in February 3rd, 2026. Hey, bae, you don't get better by avoiding, by closing your eyes, by putting your head in the sand, hoping no one sees you. You don't get better when you limit the risks, when you play it safe, when you protect yourself too much. You get better when you let go of the armor, when you understand that you're not perfect, and you never will be. When you admit that you'll make mistakes, that yesterday you did make mistakes, and you take ownership of today. In the mirror, eyes open, unblinking. You only grow when, knowing all of that, you still take the risks, ready to make the most out of them. So do that, bae. Love you. Always. Forever proud of you. Your hero. Me. And this reminds me of something a friend of mine told me recently. So, this friend of mine lives abroad right now, and he went abroad a few years ago. And I asked him about his plans, whether he wanted to come back to Algeria, start a business, go somewhere else. And he said something that stayed with me. He said, Dunya, I'm not going to focus so much on goals anymore. I'm going to focus on opportunities. I'll follow opportunities instead of chasing goals. And that completely shifted something in me, because at the same time, Mehdi Boubatara shared something his father told him. He said, life is all about opportunities. The only question is, are you ready to take them? And I think that's where everything connects, because opportunities don't wait for you to be ready. They reveal whether you are. And that's why Mehdi did so many things, learned so many skills, tried so many paths. Not because each one made sense at the time, but because one day, one of them would. So maybe the goal is not to control every step, but to build yourself into someone who is ready when the right door opens. So how do we reconcile all of this? Having a vision, but being open. No plan B, but still flexible. Well, here's how I see it. Your plan A is not a path. It's actually a destination. It's the life you want, the person you want to become, the impact you want to have. But the way you get there can change. And I think maybe that's the balance. Like, be obsessed with the destination, but flexible with the road. Because sometimes the opportunity you didn't plan for is exactly the one that will change your life. Lesson 3 is about hard work, starting anywhere and keeping going. One thing all 3 stories had in common was the level of work behind them, the kind of work no one really sees. Tony worked 16 to 18 hours a day, washing dishes, cleaning, cooking, sometimes 2 jobs at a time. Mehdi Boubatara did the same, setting up event stands, distributing flyers under the sun, selling juice during Ramadan for 12 hours a day, 30 days straight, no days off. Shamsu Sahrawi as well, working in a supermarket while studying, starting from the bottom. And if you notice something, none of them looked down on any job. They didn't wait for the perfect opportunity. They didn't feel too good to start small. They just started, and they worked. Mehdi tells the story that captured this so perfectly. One day during Ramadan, after long exhausting hours selling juice, he was asked to distribute flyers in the heat. And he remembers feeling frustrated watching people throw away the flyers instantly, after he had spent hours handing them out. He felt invisible, unimportant, disrespected. And in that moment he called his mother and he told her, I want to stop. But she simply said, be patient. Be patient, my son. So he went back, and that same day he applied for a job at a travel agency. He went on Witness. This is a website where you could find jobs, you could find things to buy and things to sell and so on and so forth. And the job he applied for at this travel agency was a job where he didn't meet most of the requirements. He had no experience, no real qualifications, and the only thing he had was he lived nearby. And yet he applied anyways, because he had nothing to lose. And the next day, which was very surprising as I heard that, they called him and they asked him to start working. in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. But when it was time to start, they didn't answer his calls. No confirmation, no reassurance. And still, he knew the address of the job he was going to take, and he showed up. He went anyway, he presented himself, and that's what got him the job. Because if he didn't go, nothing would have happened. And I think there's something very real about that moment. The moment where everything in you wants to stop. June 17th, 2025. Hey, future me. Why do I forget? Why is it that I feel so grateful today, so aware of all the blessings around me? And then somehow I lose sight of them the very next day. Even though I swore this time would be different. That I couldn't possibly forget this. Not after what I just lived. Not after what I just learned. Because it felt too big, too real, too sacred to ever fade. Why do I wake up one day with joy in my chest, feeling like I finally cracked something open? Like I figured out how to make the rest of my life just as good as this moment. And then wake up the next day feeling heavy, sad, and so far away from it all. Why do I make decisions with all my heart one day, and then doubt them completely the next day? Why do I do that? Because hard work is not just physical, it's emotional. It's showing up even when your mind is not aligned, even when your heart hesitates. And beyond just working hard, there's how you work. Because what stood out in Mehdi's journey was not just that he worked, but that he worked well. He was meticulous. Whatever he was, he gave his best. He was serious, reliable, even when the job didn't seem important. And one day that changed everything. He was actually working at a small job doing ads on a scooter. Just an animator, but he was punctual, he was committed, he was invested. And then COVID hit. So the company had to pivot into a delivery service. And they chose him to help build it. So he went from an animator to co-founder. Not because of luck, but because of how he showed up when no one was watching. And there's always someone watching. I mean, there's this ayah where Allah says, وَقُلْ اعْمَلُوا فَسَيَرَ اللَّهُ عَمَلَكُمْ وَرَسُولَهُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. So whenever you work, whenever you do something, do it well. Put your best into it. And it will never be lost, I promise. Another thing Mehdi insists on is taking initiative. Speaking up, sharing ideas, even with manager. Not waiting to be told what to do, but becoming someone who adds value, someone who becomes difficult to replace. And this is something I read a lot about in Steve Jobs' biography. He was someone who took initiatives when working for Atari, for example. And I think this connects deeply with something I once wrote in January 21st, 2026. Hey, future me. I think it's time. Time to grow out of what doesn't serve me. Time to fully accept, appreciate, and love what's in the mirror in front of me. Time to treat myself with all the care I deserve. Time to stop asking and start acting. To stop fearing and start caring. I think it's time to let go of the past and what's in it. To acknowledge it, let it pass, and start embracing what's ahead. Because at some point you stop waiting to be chosen, and you start choosing yourself. And then there's one last idea, a controversial one, but a powerful one. The idea that maybe you don't have to choose. Maybe you can do everything. Shamsu Sahrawi is the perfect example of this. He didn't want to let go of anything. When he finally got into dentistry, he also pursued studies abroad for a while. When he was working, he was also training. He was also learning German. He was also building his physique and creating content. He didn't pick one path. He actually carried all of them. And this reminds me of something I once heard in an episode of the Founders Podcast. So David was talking about a moment in his life where he felt completely stuck, not knowing what to do, not even wanting to do anything. So he called a friend and started complaining about it. And his friend didn't give him a long speech, didn't try to analyze the situation. He just said one sentence. quoting ideas inspired by leaders like Napoleon and Lyndon Johnson from Robert Caro's biographies. He said, "If you do everything, you will win." And that was it. The conversation lasted maybe 60 seconds, maybe 90, but that was enough because in that moment, he knew exactly what he had to do. And I think this is where most people hesitate because it's hard, because it's overwhelming, because it feels like too much. May 21st, 2025. Hey babe, I get it. I really do. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay to feel that way. It's even okay to surrender sometimes. It's okay to stop, to be weak for a day, a week, even a month. But babe, you have to be careful, because if you stay there too long, if you choose comfort for too long, everything will get harder, way harder than you ever imagined. One day you might wake up in a life you no longer recognize, a life you regret, a life filled with choices you're not proud of. You'll suffer, not for a moment, but for years, maybe for a lifetime. And worse, you could pass that pain on to the people you love, your kids, every promise you made to yourself, every dream you whispered at night, all the things you could have done, the people you could have helped, the life you could have brought to the world, gone, buried with you. And that, babe, that would be unfair. Unfair to you, unfair to this world, unfair to the blessings God gave you. So yes, rest. Yes, fail. Yes, break down, cry, and get lost if you need to. But never ever stop. Because your mistakes don't mean you're off course. They mean you're getting closer. Closer to the finish line. Closer to the version of you you're chasing. Just one more rep. One more try. One more day. So rest, baby Dune. But don't stop. Love you. Always. Forever proud of you. Your hero. Me. Because at the end of the day, it's not about where you start. It's not about the job you take. It's not about how small it looks. It's about how you show up. It's about whether you keep going. It's about whether you're willing to do what most people want, long enough for your life to change. Lesson 4 is about something simple, but terrifying. Courage creates opportunities, not talent, not certainty, not perfect timing, just courage. Sometimes the biggest opportunities don't look like opportunities at all. They look like closed doors, uncomfortable conversations, risky decisions, moments where you could walk away but choose not to. When Tony Kitos was only 22 years old, he came across a restaurant that had shut down. Most people would have kept walking, but he didn't. He contacted the landlord and asked to rent it. He had saved around £60,000, everything he had, and right before signing, his lawyer warned him. This could go wrong. There was a clause that could allow the landlord to terminate the contract early. It wasn't safe, it wasn't secure, and in that moments of doubt, Tony asked someone close to him, "What should I do?" And the answer he got was disarmingly simple. What do you have to lose? Tony said nothing. And that friend told him, well, then you have your answer. And that single moment of courage became the beginning of Comptoir Libanais. Mehdi Boubaddra lived that same principle again and again, not in one big moment, but in dozens of small, uncomfortable ones. He applied to jobs he wasn't qualified for, walked into places that weren't expecting him. He asked questions most people are afraid to ask. You might remember his story about that day when he was exhausted. He called his mom and said, "I want to stop," and she told him, be patient, my son." So he kept going, and that same day, as I mentioned before, he applied for a job at a travel agency. He barely met one criterion, and yet he applied. They called him and then disappeared, and still, on that day he was supposed to start, he showed up anyway. Because he understood something most people don't. Opportunities don't always open the door for you. Sometimes you have to stand there and knock until it does. And that mindset followed him everywhere he went. When he learned graphic design, he didn't wait to be hired. He walked into a restaurant and offered to create their menu. When he wanted to become an event host, he didn't apply directly. He started at the bottom, setting up stands, just to get closer to the right people. When he went to Malta, broke, almost out of money, he didn't settle. He told himself, it's impossible that there is no place here for what I can offer. And when no opportunities appeared, he actually created one. He once said something that captured this mindset perfectly. He said, never underestimate what you bring to the table. The market is never full. There is always a place for you. And if there isn't, create it. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Courage is not one big leap. It's a series of small decisions where you refuses to shrink. It's asking. It's showing up. It's trying even when you feel unqualified, unwanted, or unsure. Because the truth is, nothing in life is non-negotiable. And you lose nothing by asking. September 6th, 2025. Hey, future me. Sometimes I just want to disappear, just for a moment. Go somewhere far away, somewhere no one can reach me. Somewhere quiet enough for my heart to breathe again. Sometimes I want to slip back into a beautiful corner of my past. Stay there for a while. Feel the warmth I once felt and let the world stop spinning for just a second. I want to disappear and then come back. Look around me and see. Would anything be different? Would someone notice the silence I left behind? Would anyone feel the space I used to fill? Or would I simply fade? Unseen? Unnoticed? Forgotten? Or should I just not care and just show up? And yet, deep down, you know you don't actually want to disappear. You want to be seen, to matter, to create something real. And that only happens when you step forward, not back. July 12th, 2025. Hey, future me. Some days I just wish I could wake up far away from everyone. Far from noise, far from opinions, far from expectations. Just me, doing my thing, learning about the world, building the best version of myself, and staying there. No justifying my choices, no comparing, no attaching, no painful goodbyes. But when I really sit with it, that kind of life wouldn't be worth much, would it? Because what's the point of growing if I can't share it with the people I love? What's the point of building if there's no one to celebrate the victories with? Who would catch me when I fall? Who would remind me I'm wrong when I can't see myself? And what if one day I left this world alone? And that's where courage becomes even deeper. It's not just about leaving. It's not just about building. It's about doing both, despite the fear. February 11th, 2026. Hey, future me. I'm stepping into the uncomfortable, the unknown, the unguaranteed, the scary, the too much, for something new, a new experience, a new responsibility, a new life. I fear I'm going to regret it, but I know I'm going to regret it even more if I don't go for it. And so, I'm just going to do it. And whatever happens, happens. Allah, please, help me. Maybe that's it. Not certainty, not guarantees. Just this, I'm scared, but I'm going anyway. Because in the end, the people who build something extraordinary are not the ones who had perfect plans. They're the ones who, in a quiet moment, ask themselves, what do I have to lose? And have the courage to answer, well, nothing. And just did. By the way, I know I'm trying to introduce my letters without any announcement whatsoever, and that is in a way because I want to make it a bit more cinematic and introduce a bit more depth and emotion into the lessons. I'm not sure if it's really that good, but I really hope so, and yeah, I really hope you're enjoying it so far. Because lesson 5, which is actually the last lesson, is about something we all know, but rarely accept, which is that growth happens outside your comfort zone. Mehdi Boubadrah believed that every few years, a person needs a radical change. A new country, a new environment, a new version of themselves. Because if you don't change, you get comfortable. And comfort is where growth slowly dies. At one point he had money. Not a lot, but enough to choose. He could have bought a bike, built a simple life, worked a stable job, and lived peacefully. Or he could leave, start over, lose everything familiar, and step into the unknown. And that choice is something most of us face at some point. Not always as dramatic, but always the same at its core. It's either growth or comfort. And Mehdi chose growth. He chose to go abroad, not because it was easy or clear, but because something in him knew staying would cost me more than living. And when you leave, everything changes. Your language disappears, your people disappear, your habits disappear. And suddenly you are left with something very raw. You, your discipline, your mindset, your ability to handle life without a safety net. And that's when it gets real. Shimsu talked about loneliness in Germany. Tony talked about the mental pressure of building something big. Mehdi said it simply: when you are abroad, you have no backup, no home to run to, no familiar arms to fall into. Some days you don't even have the space to feel what you're going through. And yet, that's exactly what shapes you, because when everything is stripped away, you don't become someone new, you discover who you've always been. August 19th, 2025. Hey future me. Today I just want to go back to the start, to the beginnings when everything was new. When you didn't know, when you hadn't tried, when it didn't matter. I want to return to the days when it all felt light, naive, beautiful, when you didn't have to think so much, when there were no consequences. Or maybe there were, but you didn't know them yet. To the time when you simply lived without carrying the weight of what might happen next. And maybe that's what makes growth so hard. It asks you to leave that version of life behind, the lightness, the innocence, the certainty. But here's the paradox. Growth makes life heavier, but it also makes you stronger. Because out there, you learn to adapt, and adaptation is everything. Mehdi said it himself. He went through difficult moments, but he adapted. And that's what makes the difference. Not talent, not luck, but adaptability. And maybe the truth is this. Most of what we stress about doesn't deserve our stress. You learn to focus on what you can control, to let go of what you can't, to move forward, even when nothing feels stable. October 4th, 2025. Hey future me. Patience and timing. We get so caught up in trying to rush and achieving things as fast as possible, and finding the one sooner rather than later, and being early for everything. We forget to be patient. We forget that life has its own timing. We forget that the right people at the right time make all the difference. We overlook that everything unfolds in its own moment, and that time is the greatest filter. Patience and timing. Because growth is not just about movement, it's about timing, about enduring the in-between, and while you're out there, building, adapting, learning, there's something else you start to notice. Something quieter, something heavier. Loneliness. Yes, you meet people. Yes, you build connection. But it's not the same. It's not the same as your family. It's not the same as your friends from high school and middle school and med school and so on. And sometimes you realize that while you were building your life, a part of your personal world was slowly becoming empty. I mean, from what I've noticed, Tony built an empire, but he also said he never really had time to find someone to share it with. When he was asked whether he had down moments, he admitted that he unquestionably did. He says, Mental health is something almost every entrepreneur struggles with. There isn't a single one who escapes it. And the hardest part is this. At night, you're alone. You stress alone. You overthink alone. Sometimes you even break down alone. And when I heard that, I couldn't help but wonder, isn't that exactly where a meaningful relationship would have mattered the most? Isn't this the space where having someone by your side would have made all the difference? I mean, it makes you question things because it feels like, what if succeeding professionally sometimes comes at the cost of your personal life? And that thought scares me a lot. And maybe that's why this part of your journey feels the hardest, because it's not just about becoming more, it's about not losing what already matters. January 23rd, 2026. Hey, future me. I guess that ultimately it's about now. It always has been, hasn't it? One day I might go. I might be forgotten by some, missed by others. I will surely miss most of them. And yet today, I have the chance to laugh with them, to cry with them, to live with them. And I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. Maybe that's the real tension of this whole journey. Becoming without losing. Growing without disconnecting. I remember talking about this with a dear friend of mine, someone older, someone who had lived abroad, experienced different lives, and eventually came back to Algeria. And I asked them the same question, the one that keeps coming back. Is it worth it? And they told me something I don't think I'll ever forget. They said, go. Go, Dunya. Go learn. Go travel. Go experience life. Go expand your mind, your world, your limits. Become the version of yourself you're meant to become. Only after you've truly tried, only after you've truly lived it, can you decide what comes next. And for everything else, you're overthinking it. I promise you will come on its own. What's meant for you will find you wherever you are. And somehow that stayed with me because it reminded me of something I read recently, which was, if something is truly meant for you, it's already finding its way towards you. What's real will never make you back. What's yours is simply unavoidable. And maybe that's what faith looks like in the middle of all this uncertainty. You go, you grow, you become, and you trust that you won't lose what was truly meant to stay. And after everything, after the courage, the risks, the distance, maybe the ending is simpler than we thought. Because in the end, you were never choosing between a life of ambition and a life of love. You were just learning how to build a life that can hold both. And that is where I'll leave it. I really hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as I've enjoyed making it. If you haven't yet subscribed to the podcast or YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate it if you did. Your support goes a long way in motivating me to keep chasing my hero and sharing this journey with you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take care and keep chasing your hero.